don't want what we know out there.
How a person can go from really almost nothing to becoming a millionaire by owning rental properties.
He would always buy these flip houses, and I just remember thinking, this guy is crazy. Why would he buy that house?
In the past decade, there's been a huge surge in the peer-to-peer short-term rental market.
Become an insider. So you have to know the rules before you get the game.
Every second counts. So make every second count.
Welcome to the Real Estate Jam. Whether you're just beginning or the best of the best, we're glad you're here. We will share successes, failures, and strategies for the action-taking real estate investor. And now to your hosts, JD, Annabel, and Melissa.
Hi, guys. Welcome to the Real Estate Jam podcast. I'm JD. With me, as always, my wonderful co-hosts, Annabel and Melissa. And today we have a fabulous beast of a show. We're honored to have our guest, Donald Ross, the creator and founder of the Beast Mode Podio-based CRM. Don, thanks a lot for being here with us. We really appreciate your time, and thanks for being a little bit flexible with us on that scheduling conflict. We really appreciate it. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. It's just another sunny day in California, and kind of been outside with the kids, enjoying the little bit of time that we got off with things going on.
Nice.
Yeah, that's great. Well, like I said, we're really glad that you were able to find the time to get here with us. We're all super excited to hear, all the awesome value that you're going to be able to provide our listeners with.
Yeah, guys, I really appreciate it. And, we're part of a mastermind, and it's been great to kind of get to know you guys and be a part of that. So appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then, I don't know, you know, we're Air Force as well, so we have a big military following. So thank you, Don, for your service.
Yeah,
he's a Marine, so we really appreciate that, and we're glad to hear there's success after the military, too.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a little bit to kick it, for sure. I got out in 2014, so it was definitely nice to have some of the routines, but it was nice to get out and not have some of the stuff that comes with that. I still miss it, but there's definitely things I don't miss. I'll say that.
That's funny. I'm still in, and there's things that I don't miss.
Yeah, the 04 to get up to talk to somebody at 05, and we'll be there at 06 stuff is, I'm good.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think
JD's at the 03.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think a lot of our listeners will be able to relate to that. Stand by to stand by. Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah, nowadays, when the restaurants were open, if the lines were more than 15, 20 minutes, I'm out. Not doing it anymore.
I like that too.
Yeah, we went to a couple places this week. It was great because there was nobody there. It was awesome.
Yeah, I'm definitely guilty of being the one that likes to stay at the house, and unless it's between 9 and 2 in California, Orange County, I'm not leaving. I'm not on the road. I'm not dealing with traffic.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably smart, especially right now. All right, Don, well, can you tell us a little bit about what we usually like to start with is, how you got into real estate and, walk our listeners through that if you're a beginning real estate investor, and then kind of where your business is at now.
Okay. So for me, I actually found real estate investing and what it entails and the wholesaling and direct mail and lumpy mail and all that stuff in 2003, to be honest with you. And I was fresh out of high school, 18 years old. That's what I was going to go do. Working construction at the time, I think I was making $10-11 an hour. Did it for a little bit, got callbacks, and really just dropped the ball and left it and came back to it 10 years later. So 2013-14, when I was getting out of the military, I decided, hey, I remember that thing. I'm going to go back to that and try that out and actually do something with it. And finances were a little bit different at that point to where I could afford to do some different things. Getting out, retired military, and then I was starting at Northrop Grumman, doing F-18 jet negotiation type contracts. So for me, it was a little bit different getting out and doing it at that point. Found some stuff online. Some of the guys might know the name Joe McCall. He had some stuff about lease options. I was like, all right, I'm going to try doing some of this. And at that time, he was known as the nickname of Podio Joe. He was the one that kind of everyone was going to for Podio, and started doing the lease options and the marketing and everything that came with that from California in Wisconsin. And so I was doing it remote, making the phone calls, negotiating with sellers, doing everything remote before the whole virtual wholesaling and all that kind of really existed. And what I wound up doing is my first deal was $4,600. A local PD wound up putting down a down payment. He wound up doing the lease with an option to buy. I got my payment. The owner was happy because they were paying two house payments at the time. So wound up doing my first deal from California in Wisconsin, and did a second lease option, and then kind of found the whole wholesaling stuff and figured out what that was. And to me, that seemed a little bit easier. So I decided that I was going to try that out. Cardinal sin, do one thing and be really good at it at first and then stick with it. I should have not done that, but it is what I did. And what I wound up doing about 10 deals on my own first. And at that point, wholesaling houses full time was just kind of growing at that point, Facebook group. And my business partner, Amy, happened to be on there saying she was doing deals in Wisconsin, and she had done it for 20 plus years. And I was like, hey, I'm going to reach out. We're going to talk, see what we can do together. Maybe we wound up connecting up. We did 10, 15 together. And then at that point decided to come in together and started doing deals together back in 2014, 15. So I was doing a lot of the operation stuff and marketing, and she was doing the appointments and things like that.
John, that's
Very
actually, oh, sorry, Melissa, you probably have the same question as me, but we actually get that question a lot about how'd you guys find each other and how'd you guys know you were a good match? Can you walk us through a little bit of that?
Sure. So for me being retired military and Marine Corps, it's very shortcut to the point. I'm not going to talk your ear off for the most part on the phone. She was prior FBI and had some other stuff to where we could relate. Very frank to the point and in your face a little bit. And I think it was more of a mutual respect of, we kind of knew exactly what we were good at. And she liked the sales part of it and going on the appointments, talking with sellers, all the stuff I hate. So there was that stuff that I didn't want to do it. I knew it was a necessary evil of where I was trying to go. So that's why I was doing it on the phone. But for us, for the first year and a half, 2 years, I was doing the direct mail, sending it out through a mail house, managing the CRM, managing the phone numbers, all that operational type stuff. And then when the calls came in, I was actually taking them. And I was working full-time for Northrop and the VA at the time, and wound up taking the calls randomly through breaks and lunches and all the other different times that you could take calls, scheduling appointments for her. She would go out and do the appointments and then put the notes into Podio. And we would kind of go back and forth and figure it out from there. It was an interesting time for sure, working a full-time job, having her go and try to do things nights and weekends. It's rough. And so I can relate to those trying to get started. And when you're working 40 hours and doing another 20, 30, 40 hours on top of it, it's crazy.
Yeah, we know that.
Yeah, that's for sure. But I do think that that's really a good segue, and maybe you could talk a little bit about how you started to come up with just the ideas, because I think really what a good CRM to me should do is kind of alleviate some of those alleviate some of these yellow notebooks that you have literally all over, but also if you really get a good CRM, it saves you time. So you have those 20, 30, 40 hours that you're putting in after hours that can be simplified, and you can get more bang for your buck if you're tracking your deals the right way, you're tracking your follow-up the right way, all of that kind of stuff. Can you talk about kind of what led you into building up this CRM and kind of why it's important?
Sure. Yeah. So for me, when I was in the Marine Corps, my secondary job that I moved to was what's called contracting officer. At the time when I was in, there was roughly 205,000 active Marines. There was roughly 50 of us in the entire Marine Corps that did what I did. Part of that was tracking contracts, tracking requirements and money on base, and that was a couple $100 million at the time. What I wound up doing is I always wanted to go to school and go to college for computer science, coding, never did. And so I literally YouTube self-taught myself how to build out an Access database. And I built this wild, crazy thing that tracked all the requirements and contracts out of Access. Literally the only thing I did for like 3.5 months. When I did it for about a month on my own, showed my boss what I had. And I was like, hey, what do you think? And he's like, okay, go further. This is what you're doing for now. Wow. And I did it for 3.5 months. came back into it, and I was in Lejeune 2 years ago, maybe. They're still using it to this day.
Wow.
Cool.
That is cool. JD, maybe we need to go back a little bit and talk about, maybe because a newer investor might not be familiar with CRM and what that is and what it can be.
Yeah, absolutely. Don, would you mind taking a stab at that and kind of, we have listeners that are pretty experienced, and then we have a lot that are just finding us on Facebook and coming in that way.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So typically you're going to be doing some type of prospecting or marketing, whether that's cold calling, texting, direct mail. And then once you do that, you're going to have some type of response, hopefully. And those responses, you're going to figure out, is there something there where they potentially have a house for sale that meets the criteria that you're looking for? And if they do, then when they're in the CRM, you want to have your notes and things in there that are tracked and able to be searched at a later date. And oftentimes what we have found is a year, 2, 3, 4 years later, things change. And as we know with what's happened recently, things can drastically change. So if you've got those notes and those things in there, when they call back in, you're able to reference them again. Because if you ask me what happened last week, I got no idea, let alone last year or 2 years ago. So really, this is a platform where that's going to store those calls, that information that you put in there, and whatever you kind of figured out at the time. And ideally, you're following up with them, whether it's automated or phone calls that you're making. And as things change, you're putting the notes in there, and that allows you to kind of figure out who's a higher priority over some of the others. And normally we're finding somewhere between 30 and 40% of the stuff that will close out will come from that follow-up. So that cycle can be 6 months, that can be 2-3 years, and you've got to be able to do it consistent. And that's, without that, you're losing 30 to 40% of that marketing spend that you put out there. And that's huge for a lot of people. So that can be the difference between something making money and losing money, depending on what you're doing with your company. So,
so in real simple terms, it is a way to manage the relationship that you have with your customers, customer relationship management, and you can get super in depth. There's all the big businesses across the world, any type of sales business that's actually serious is using some sort of tool to manage the relationships that they have with their customers. In this case, we have a couple different sets of customers, right? We have our sellers who are our customers, and we need to manage and nurture that. But we also have our buyers that we need to manage and nurture those leads if we're wholesaling, or if we are even like regular real estate agents can use those for their buyers and stuff. And so there's a lot of things that get lost if you don't have a place to put them. And what your CRM does is gives people a place to put them and a way to automate some of those tasks. So can we talk about kind of the capabilities of Beast Mode and maybe, what it looks like or what it's intended to do and how people, I know it's a pretty popular, at least in our circle, it's a pretty popular CRM. I think I heard you on a different podcast say there's about 900 or 1,000 different users, successful real estate investors that use it. So could you kind of give us a rundown of what your CRM does?
Yeah. So first and foremost, what I always tell anybody is CRM in general is one of those things. What I notice is you hate it or you love it. So I have one, yes. If you love it, great, use it. If you don't, find one that you do love and make sure you consistently use it, because that's what matters at the end of the day. If you got some fancy CRM that you just stare at once a week or something like that and don't do nothing with it, it ain't going to do you no good. So make sure you like it and you're going to use it. With ours, really what we focused on was bringing in some of your leads and prospects and being able to filter them in almost a sales funnel fashion, meaning you have your new stuff, you have your stuff that you're trying to get some information from, your appointments, your offers, your contract, and then your follow-up. And you've got to have easy buckets to identify where they're at in that sales process and when you need to follow up with them, whether that's a phone call or whether that's a text going out, whatever the case may be. We've tried to simplify that as much as possible by having basically one app that has all the property information, seller information, and your notes, as well as the status as you're pushing it through that process. From there, you can turn on things like text drip out, follow up. So you're following up with text messages that are going to their phone automatically through the system. Ringless voicemails, if you can do that in your market, it's sending out the ringless voicemails. We're working on direct mail right now, where you'll be able to send direct mail out and follow up with people. All those things are keeping you in front of them. And when things change, they remember you because you're not like the 98% that went out there, talked to them once, and then they never heard from you again. So, we're trying to make that touch point of, 5, 10 touch points where they remember because we didn't go away. And every couple of weeks we checked in, how are things going? And ideally, you can get to a point where you're sending direct mail pieces through the system where you're talking about something they brought up on the phone call, their kid, they're this, they're that, be different and actually build a relationship, right? Care enough to talk to them and actually see what's going on with them. I think a lot of people make the mistake of they're just going for the sale, if you will, and they could care less what's going on with their house and their problems. They're all about what's up with your house. How many square feet is it? How many beds is it? Okay, but they just told you their dog died. Like, do you not care? Like, try to be a human, right? And that's, I know that from some of the conversations I've listened to with, VAs and things that we've had in the past where they're very rigid and structured. And if they're a checklist that they're supposed to go through, they're going to go through that checklist, but they just told them about something personal and they just went right on to the next question. So you've got to be able to have that relationship built and be able to have that conversation with them. And over the long term, they think of you almost as a friend. And when it's time, they think of you first. So that's what we're trying to build with it. At the end of the day, that touch point, that marketing is important. And then the follow-up, and then really knowing your numbers, KPIs as people call them. As we kind of push stuff through the sales process, we want to know if we get 100 phone calls, how many times does it take before we can get an appointment from that? How many offers, how many contracts, and then how many closed deals? And overall, we're tracking some things like per campaign. Does it take 90 days? Does it take 6 months for that money to come back? Some of the texting campaigns, we'll see 3 to 6 months, it turns the money back around. And then some of the direct mail pieces is sometimes a longer term, depending on which list is being used. So you've got to know what your turn points are on your money. If I spend it now, am I getting it back in 90 days, 6 months, 2 years? What does that look like? And part of the system is tracking that, letting you know kind of what that looks like. And overall, just kind of how's the health of your business and what does it take to get a deal?
Don, can you elaborate what the drip is? Because I know I wouldn't have known what it was at the beginning of my journey in this.
Yeah. So for us, when we're dripping out stuff, what we show our members and provide to our members is a couple different options. Out of the box, they're going to have drip short-term, drip long-term, and they can customize it. But short-term is going to be a fairly aggressive. Every 7 days or so, it's going to send out a text message. And then you can put in like a ringless voicemail in between that. So it's back and forth. And then ideally, you're setting a date of when you want to call. So you're personally calling, how are things going, checking in. And like I said, as the direct mail stuff comes in, then we'll start doing that. So it's those different touch points of drip out. And it's not you doing everything, because when you have to do everything, things pop up, fires pop up, and stuff doesn't get done. So, we've had plenty of members where a year into some of their follow-up, they're popping off deals for 20, 50, 40,000, whatever. And they haven't even called them. I wish they would, but they hadn't even called them. It was text and ringless voicemails and things like that were going out through the system that got them to call back in, and they were able to land a deal that would have never happened if they didn't have something going out.
I think I heard at one point, Don, that you had some sort of relationship with John Martinez and his text message stuff. Is that a thing that you guys are? Is that your text drip? Is that where that was coming from?
Yeah. So John is a good friend of mine, prior Marine, so we connect very well. He is kind of the go-to sales trainer for acquisition leads managers within the real estate industry, and he's given us the okay to use some of his content. So that's what's built to drip out through the text and through the ringless audio files. And so it gets a very good starting point. Now, he's gotten very popular. His text messages have gotten very popular to the point where we recommend, yes, we gave you a starting point, but please go in and adjust slightly with what it's saying. Right. Because you know from some of the texting platforms out there nowadays where out of the blue, which is him, is no longer something they recommend texting out and some of the other stuff. So, if you can get for me personally, if I can get something that's 80 to 90% of the way there and I can go in and just make adjustments, I can do that very easily. But if I got to start from fresh and scratch and try to figure it out, good luck.
Not happening. I haven't had an original thought. 10 years.
Yeah, you're speaking JD's language there.
Yeah.
Shortcuts.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's what it's all about, right? That's what the automation is about. That's what we're trying to do is accelerate this real estate game, this real estate process. And we do that by leveraging other people's knowledge and experience and adding our own flair onto it.
Right.
I guess I really am wondering, and I think it would be good to know, is like, who is your target audience when you built Podio? Well, maybe not initially. It was your CRM building it for you, but now that you've evolved a little bit past where you were centrally focused on, or focused on you. Now you're marketing, or I don't even know if you guys market. I just know word of mouth marketing is how we heard about it. But who are you focused on? Which is your ideal client? Is that the big time investor who's doing 5,000 deals a year? Is that 300 deal a year, which is still a huge guy? Or is this do you think maybe it's the 1 or 2 deals a month, or of the one house every 6 months? What kind of target are you looking for, and who's going to receive the most benefit out of a product like yours?
Yeah, so specifically to Beast Mode and the automated version side, it's going to be the guys and gals that are doing a couple deals a month, and 2 to 3 a month and or more really is that target point, meaning they're to a point where, hey, if I spend a couple $100 a month on the CRM, some phone numbers, things like that, it's not going to nosedive my company because I got no extra money, right? I never want somebody to make a decision. Do I pay for a CRM or do I market? Well, you should definitely market. So, that's kind of that point where you've got to be able and okay to spend the money on the customer relationship management platform and not have it kill your business at the same time. And normally what that looks like is that they are doing 2 to 3 deals or more a month. And for those that are not ready to that point, we've always said, hey, I'm not forgetting about you. We've built out the free version. It's not automated, but it's got the apps. It's got all the fields like Beast Mode, and it's got the ability to enter information in. We call that one the simple CRM, and that one was built for the people that are getting started. So, I get it that you can't always have the best of everything and the automation out of the box, and you're just getting started and testing it out. So the simple one, the free one, they simply put in a request, and we literally install the apps and workspace, and they can do whatever they want with it at that point. It's free for theirs to do, and because it's built on Podio, if they have the app on their phone or their tablet or whatever, if they're on the go, they can enter in their information, and it's a good way to at least get started. And then when they're ready, they can always bump up and jump to the automated version with Beast Mode.
If you're in the free version and you got all your leads in there and you've been working it for a while and you decide, hey, you know what, I'd really like to use this automated version. If I transfer over to the automated version, am I going to lose all those other leads, or do they convert over? What does that process look like? Because I've heard some people speak on that and worried that, you're going to lose, 6 months worth of leads or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, so with Podio, there's one little nuance that you've got to know, and that is on Podio's little bottom right comment box. If you were going to use the free version with the intent to at some point move up to the paid version and the automated version, you would not want to use that comment box. Reason for it is when you export your stuff out, which is a CSV file, those comments don't export out. So we put in a notes field that you'll see inside of the property section. Mm-hmm. Put your notes in the notes field, and everything will move out, and everything will move over, and you'll be fine. That one little thing will save you a lot of heartache where you won't have to worry about notes not transferring, and everything else, then yes, we can move over. And so if you're working your stuff and you've got stuff moving through the pipeline in certain statuses, it matches up with Beast Mode to where we can move everything over and it matches up with what we have.
Gotcha,
hey,
yeah.
Don, how user-friendly is it for somebody who might not be really tech-savvy?
I would say like any software tool, it's going to have a learning curve for sure, right? And so what does that look like? I would expect that you should hit the ground running within probably 2 weeks. So cruising around, pushing around and touching on it and be okay. Now, on the easy button side and the free version, I'm doing weekly Q&A calls on Mondays for an hour to where if they've got questions, jump on and ask. It's free. Just ask.
Awesome. Wow.
Okay, so that's
cool.
part of it, right? And then the Beast Mode side, we do weekly calls on Thursdays. And you got questions, you jump on and ask. And then both of them have Facebook groups and all that stuff to ask questions. So, You're not just getting it and then, hey, it's yours, have fun, good luck. We actually support it and provide answers. Podio and automation and coding and all that stuff is one of those things where I love doing it, to where, you know, the insanity of spending hours sometimes doesn't justify the payment, but I love it to where I don't care, right? So for me, it's one of those things where Monday through Friday, that's what I do and I love. And if they've got questions, I'm in those groups to answer them. And we've got a lot of very smart people that are smarter than I am answering questions in those groups too. And some of that's stateside people, some of that's overseas vendors, but nonetheless, if they've got questions, they can post it and they'll get answers.
Yeah, that's great. You're doing these meetings and stuff, but I also know that you're in contact with a lot of these high level investors, you know, all across the country. There's a lot of, you know, really high level guys that you're speaking with. I'm wondering, you know, this is a little bit of a transition, but what are you hearing from them, and maybe how is the coronavirus affecting your business? I'm curious. And then, you know, what are you hearing from some of these other investors, and what have you seen?
Yeah, what I would say is, in general, on the software side, we saw roughly a 5.5% decrease in clientele. Okay. So what did that look like? I could look at who those people were and how many deals they were doing, things like that. A lot of times it was those that were attempting at it, and or they were weekend warriors. They were not full-time. They were testing it out, trying to get full-time. That's what that clientele typically looked like. So, you know, they were working a job typically or normally, and they are potentially furloughed or on unemployment right now, to where they've got to make choices between paying bills and eating versus CRM. I get it all day long, right? So with that said, we haven't had a massive fall off, but we've had some. And, you know, with that, we've made some exceptions with what we typically do with cancellations and holds and things like that, to where if they do want to come back at some point, they're not losing all their stuff. It's there, it's waiting, right? So
that's awesome.
With that, I would say high level guys, what they're doing a lot of, I've seen a lot of them actually slow down some of their marketing. You know, I hear some of them are doubling and tripling and getting crazy and sending it right. What I'm seeing in general is those guys at this point have seen that the marketing was not getting a response in the way that they'd hoped. So a lot of them are really focusing on follow-up and building the relationships with stuff they've already got in their system. Some of them are still doing a lot of the niche mailings, your tax defaults and things like that. Yes, they're still sending that. But the spray and pray of 40, 50, 80,000 mailers that a lot of us were doing at one point in time, a lot of them are holding that back right now. And, you know, for that, I would say some of the lower cost of marketing channels, such as texting and ringless voicemail and cold calling, are getting a little bit more traction right now because it doesn't cost as much to send out some of that mail. But if you've got the niche list and you've got that relationship, still sending mail. I'm still seeing mail going out. You're just not sending as large bulk that they were before.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that just goes back to how important it is. You know, those big guys, they're smart and they're doing things for a reason. So when they're diving back into their follow-up, that tells us that, you know, that's probably what we need to be doing. As a matter of fact, the deal that we're working on, almost closing. By the time this podcast comes out, it'll already be closed. But we got it from a follow-up that I think the first time we talked to him was last
before
December.
Christmas.
Before Christmas. And it just, you know, they no-show, they scheduled an appointment, no-showed us, scheduled appointment, no-showed us, scheduled appointment, no-showed us. And then we did this follow-up. You know, we put them on a 90-day, okay, these guys aren't serious, they don't care. We put them 90-day follow-up, and then we got the appointment. Okay, we've been down this road before, and then next thing you know, with the virus, I don't know if that put extra pressure on them or they just finally had the time that they needed to make the decision. But we got it under contract, and I think we had all kind of written that lead off, and you don't think about it after a certain point. You know, that was months ago, and we ended up getting it under contract for a pretty good discount, bigger discount than we thought we would, and you know, now we're going to make a pretty killer wholesale fee on it, and it's all because we were able to go back and track it. Track it in our system. We know exactly which list it came off of because we've been keeping up with it in our CRM, and just how important those CRMs are.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I've brought up in the past, actually, as kind of a little tip, trick, hack, because we learned the same thing that you said there. There was a spot 2 years ago when I was really deep into the numbers for our business and found that when I looked back at the numbers at the end of the year, we'd literally bought 5 houses from people that originally said, go pound sand. So they were originally marked off as removed from list or leave me alone or whatever, and they came back around. And that's when I figured out that typically every 60 days or so, we'll export everybody that's been removed from list, things like that, and reach back out to them and see how things are going, because life happens. And I've been through that myself. Unfortunately, deployments, divorce, all that kind of stuff plays in, and all of a sudden you're making decisions you didn't think you were going to have to make. So, right, you never know. And that's been huge for us, just to kind of see that. And I've recommended that even to my friends, where if you've got these texting platforms and some of these other ways to reach out very easily on a large scale, think about exporting and doing that on a every 60 to 90 day basis and just see if things have changed for anybody.
Yeah, I think that's a really good tip.
Yeah, very good.
There. I'm wondering, okay, so are you in a sustainment mode right now? Are you just sustaining, keeping the CRM the same, making sure that it doesn't get broke, or are you? What are your plans for the future, Don? Where are you taking this Beast Mode thing? What do you got going on looking forward?
I'm addicted to improving, so we're always adjusting and adding, and friends with Todd Swaggerty with the Letter HQ, and he recently had his guy fly in from Argentina, and we had some conversations of how we could do some drip campaigns directly inside of Beast Mode with their accounts. And we're working on something right now, like I said, where you'll be able to do one-offs. So if you're talking to a seller and you either come back from an appointment or you just have a really good conversation with them, you'll be able to enter in a message, and you'll have a templated letter or postcard in your account. You'll be able to hit a button and it'll fire off a letter or a postcard, and you'll build that relationship because it'll be straight to what you were talking about, right? So that's one of the things we're working on. We've got some dashboard things that we've been working on, and there's just ever-ending, new softwares and tech and stuff that comes out. The texting platforms that have been out, we've connected to and built out specific apps and automations for each one of them. In general, we just keep our head to the ground and listen to what everybody's got going on. And, at this point, I'm a part of 4 or 5 masterminds. And so I was traveling a lot before all this stuff hit. And the nice thing about it is I get to learn what everybody's kind of doing, what's working, what softwares are working, and constantly making those points of contact and reaching out to them and seeing how we can integrate and make it work and talk back and forth. And I think that's one of the things that I really like about Podio is that flexibility. When something comes out within a month or two, usually we can be connected to it and make it connect and talk back and forth. Where some of the other platforms out there, it's this big development thing and it's 6 months from now, maybe. For us, we're quick to spin and run with something new that's come out. I know with Batch, when their texting platform came out, we were within 2 weeks connected to it, had something built out. Launch Control connected to it, Sherpa connected to it. So all these big texting platforms that people are using, we were able to spin up a connection point very quickly with them.
Right, and that works great too, because not every investor likes the some people like Lead Sherpa or whatever, and that's great. Some people like the batch and just the flexibility and options that the investors have to choose from the different platforms or do the different things is amazing. If you can get it where I can just type a little message and start sending random postcards or letters out to individual people just from the click of a button, like, here, take my money, let's go.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
And I mean, that one specifically, we're going to connect it, and we're not charging anything for it. It's just connected to your Yellow Letter account, and it'll send it out. So, when we can add stuff like that and add value, we're going to connect it. And if we can, if there's no hard cost to us to make it happen, we're just going to connect it, make it happen. And that's one of the things we've done really well at, is adding value. And if there's something that we see beneficial to you and it's fairly quick, and for instance, that one, maybe 10 minutes of our time to go in and make it happen for somebody, so it just makes sense to provide that to people and make that extra connection point. And really for us, we're big, and you mentioned this. Yes, ads wise, we do ads, we do Facebook, we do that stuff, and it's worked really well for us. But overall, at this point, we're in a lot of groups and masterminds and things like that. So that referral basis is really good. And I like it because typically if they come from a referral, we know they're a good fit. They've talked to somebody, they've known what it looks like, what it fits, what it does. And there's not the educational process of, okay, I heard about it. What does this thing do? I saw it on Facebook. You don't have that. You have, I've seen it before, and these 6, 7, 10 people are using it. I'm ready. I have this 1 or 2 questions and I'm ready. Okay. That's a whole different conversation. So that's kind of nice to be able to do. And we're not one of those companies that literally you could go to the website and we could have 600 people order. You cannot order the CRM from our website if you go to it. You have to schedule a call because we want to make sure it's a good fit and you're not just wasting money. You've got to have a good fit with us. You're doing the deals, wholesaling and all that stuff before you order. And that's beneficial to both of us. I don't want you to come in and fail after a month or 2. I want you to go in and be in there for months, years, and use the
lifelong
platform. Right. So
yeah. That's awesome. One of the things you passed over that I think is super important is the reason that you're able to build these relationships and connections between all these different platforms and time in is because you're really good at networking with these people, right? And I think it's amazing how much networking plays a part in real estate, in tech development. You're out there networking in all these different masterminds, building your business, through relationships. I think that's something that's really good to point out every chance that we get, and it really your personal relationships that you're building with guys like Todd Swaggerty are helping people like us every single day. And so we really appreciate, we appreciate your knowledge and getting to know you a little bit through these masterminds. And I know that you're doing a lot of good things for a lot of good people. We really appreciate you coming on the show today and giving us this time, thank you.
I appreciate it.
Where can our followers find you, Don?
So if we're on Facebook, it's a picture of a lion and Donald Ross, and you'll be able to find me there. And then if you wanted to reach out via private messenger, that's fine on Facebook. Not big on the Instagram. I got it, but I don't know what I'm doing. So Facebook's probably the go-to. And then really just REI Automation Squad.com or Easy Button REI. And those are the 2 spots that I've got the information and points of contact to reach out to us and kind of what we do and offer.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Don. We really appreciate learning from you today.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Jam.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all you do.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information and updates, check out our website, shorefrontrestorations.com, or find us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Shorefront Restorations. If you have any questions, feel free to drop us an email at info@shorefrontrestorations.com. See you next episode.